How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Pain. Just Pain incarnate. Last episode, it kind of was like, it was kind of super overwhelming, but just like, I still think the whole insanity of like, they somehow convinced Lucia that, you know, she desperately wanted purpose, and these crazy cult guardian people who seem to have protection from one of the other dioceses at the very least, or at least the higher ups in a diocese, convinced her that her poisonous abilities is part of what they need in order to bring about like the future, a future that she has a place in. And I feel like they warped her and convinced her to do something just awful. Essentially, they gave her a new suppressant that was highly effective, but what it didn't suppress it just to kind of keep it tucked inside. It literally built up amount to make her into literally a bomb, where it just kind of made a backlog, and then her body just released it in a big wave. And that's the thing that's really sucky about this, is that, like, she's not a bad person. But even though I genuinely believe that people can always, you know, turn away from a path they've walked down and try and make up their mistakes, like, this is big, and a lot of people died. And even if we somehow get to her now, she's gonna have to live with and probably suffer consequences for that action. She was clearly manipulated, and she has no choice in how her body behaves. Those two things are relevant when it comes to, like, what are the repercussions that she has to face because of this, but she also willfully walked into a public location knowing what she was going to be doing and participating in. And so, no matter how broken or damaged she was, or how manipulated she was, she still made that choice. And there are going to be families ripped to pieces because of this. That's what's really, like, awful about it, is, like, I genuinely don't see a way that this has a happy ending. Not really. Even if we get this whole, like, we'll live on a desert island for the rest of our lives, just Lucia and Kotarou, she's going to have to live with this for the rest of her life. That alone for Lucia is going to be torture. I do not understand how she was convinced to actually let this happen. No matter how much she wanted to believe in a purpose, I can't see that in any universe, the Lucia I know would ever accept this. So, I'm curious to see how they're going to play it and explain it. But yeah, grim times, and it's been very depressing just to think about, so I imagine this isn't going to be a super fun episode. I think all the fun, happy times are pretty much done. I think every route so far we played through has had a point where it's like, oh, well, this is just going to be a nightmare from here on out, but at least there was always something, hope to cling to, some horizon to chase. I just don't know if we see one here. Anyway, let's jump into it. 2 o'clock today, there was an outbreak of an extremely lethal gas.
Kazamatsuri 市では明日よりのイベント、収穫祭のため大勢の観光客が訪れており、犠牲者の数は相当な数に上ると思われます。
救助の遅れている最大の原因はガスの正体が未だ不明なためです。このガスは極めて強い致死性を持つだけでなく、皮膚に接触しただけでも直ちに作用するというのです。
This would be considered like an insane terrorist attack, and the idea also of like any entity being able to wield this as a weapon. Essentially, it's a new form of warfare, and it has the same kind of scary denotation and keywords of the new Kaz, which is what was previously being threatened on Kazamatsuri without the people's knowledge. Maybe it's not as directly threatening as just and obliterating as a modern nuke, but I think it's almost scarier because, like, it's a sadistic and new, terrifying type of illness. And the thing is that the city, like, if it's like the orphanage is still poisonous to this day. So the gas and poison that she released might have permanently made this place uninhabitable. And in fact, it might have been such a great extent, it might even be the epicenter of that. Remember how, like, the future they predicted was that in 1,000 years the whole world would be dead? What if this is what it is? What if at this point it becomes self-perpetuating? because you don't need very much poison to destroy all life, and maybe there's such a concentration now in Kazamatsuri that it's just going to be an epicenter, and that it's just going to slowly spread like a plague across the planet, like just getting caught up into the winds in the upper atmosphere and just slowly spreading across the entire globe. What if they, whether they intended it or not, have actually initiated the eventuality that they predicted? You know, the self-fulfilling prophecy. And I don't even think Lucia would ever have been convinced to actually bring about the world that she was prepared for. It's just sad, because I really feel like that's what's happened here. And I feel like, I don't know if there's anything that can be done. Maybe the key with all of her powers, because summoners seem to be able to protect themselves from the miasma. So there's that, maybe. Oh. Also, I'll mention it again at the end, but we have a new art for the end card. I might show it here if I remember to edit it in, but if I don't, it'll be at the end of all the videos now. Beautifully done, fantastic work done by it's the same artist who's done work on a lot of other end cards. She's just fantastic to work with. I've had a lot of blasts, and we had a lot of fun making this one. A lot happier than a lot of the stories, huh? But yeah. If for some reason I haven't put it in here, it will be at the end of the video. Highly recommend you stick to like to the very end, like even if you have to skip to it just to go and check it out, because it's absolutely beautiful and worth it looking at. So yeah, thank you so much for your hard work. Anyway, let's keep going.
そのため完全な防護服が不可欠ですが、その防護服の有効性さえ確認が取れない状態です。また防護服の数もなく、県知事は自衛隊の災害派遣を要請しました。
Self-defense force, in a disaster this scale, I think they would also be making genuinely be making appeals to all allies. I think U.S. would be #1. They'd want troops on the ground. They'd want as many, and I think the United States would send as many resources as necessary to figure out what the heck's going on. Not just because Japan's an ally, but because we're intrinsically linked when it comes to military assets and economy. We're so tied. I feel like we would be there in a heartbeat. I imagine South Korea would be there. It's possible even China would be willing to send equipment and personnel to try and figure out what this is, especially if they thought they might be able to learn if it was a potential weapon or if it was just some terrible accident. I feel like there'd be a lot of world powers that would be tripping over themselves to figure out how to help these people.
そうですね。VX ガスなどに非常によく似た性質だと思います。
Oh yeah, this is right. The VX nerve gas attack that happened in Japan. Was it in the 90s or 80s? Like that was like when people literally deployed like essentially a bioweapon in the subway in Tokyo, and like that was horrifying. Like it's something that's like it's long enough. A lot of people just don't hear about it, but like, look it up. I wish I could tell you exactly what it was called because it's not on the top of my head, but like somebody legitimately did a public attack with a nerve agent, like, and it was just horrifying to imagine. Like, just what if you're just going about your day and literally drop dead, tasteless, odorless, just no idea until you are on the floor convulsing and you're unable to breathe.
もしそうであるならば、最低でも1週間近くは土壌に残留するわけです。仮にガスの成分が特定できたとしても、救助作業は今後も困難を極めるでしょう。
当時の市内には収穫祭観光のために大勢の人が訪れていたと見られています。現在でも市内には10万人を超える方々が取り残されていると思われますが、救助作業再開のめどは全く立っておらず、
ここで大変なニュースが入ってまいりました。
Oh good, more news. I'm sure it's lovely.
風祭市のガス騒動に国際的テロ組織が犯行声明を出していたというのです。
では報道官、ガイアからの犯行予告は日本政府には通報されていなかったわけですか？
私たちは毎日100を超える国際テロの予告を分析しています。しかし、そのほぼ全てはいたずらに過ぎません。
It's true, and it's also like you always gotta wonder about the false flag planting. It's like, are these agents really like these organizations, or is that a story? Because in this case, it feels like it is a story.
テロとの戦いで最も肝心なことは軽率に反応を見せないことであり、そのために個々について慎重な分析が求められるのです。
首相、事件発生時にはどちらにおられましたか？ゴルフしてたんじゃないんですか？
If he was at golf, like my counter argument would be, when times are peaceful and there's no known threat, it's very common for me to be spending time with my friends and family, my limited free time with friends and family, and I was on the golf course. But you will see that the instant I heard about the crisis, I departed and was immediately on the ground doing what I could.
直ちに帰郷して危機管理対策室に入りました。10万人にも及ぶお亡くなりになった皆さんに心より。
Like, that's the thing, is like, you gotta remember, like, that just looks like a number, but here's the thing. Do you think you've ever even seen 100,000 people? Like, do you think you've ever seen them gathered in one place before? Do a Google search. Try and look up a crowd of 100,000 people. The thing is, the images you probably see aren't actually even 100,000. Those are usually, Tim, images of crowds that estimated to contain at some point the involvement of 100,000 people. But almost never are there actually 100,000 people present at one moment. And when it is, like, the scale of that number is so insane, like, compared to what we expect. Because, like, we see cities of millions, but we don't really comprehend what that means because it's just so big. Like, you have to, like, it helps coming from a bit of a smaller town. I grew up in a town that had about 50, 60,000 people in its surrounding area, right? So half of the number of people who were confirmed dead. This is confirmed dead, not even, like, probably dead. There's another 100,000 that are probably dead, but there's 100,000 confirmed. That's twice the number of people that existed in the town I grew up in. That means every person I ever knew throughout my entire childhood, and every person I didn't know, but who was remotely connected to me in any way, like, the fact that that number is something I still can't comprehend is just, like, I really feel like that's a scale and a scope that we need to really kind of connect with here on. Because, like, we think about disasters or military conflicts, and usually we're talking about, like thousands dying and how that's horrific and tragic. Like, a few, like 4,000, 5,000 people. Like, I think there was the recent earthquakes. I think there were, like, in the Himalayan mountains in Tibet, I think, that had like 7,000, 8,000 people that had perished. There was the big tsunami in 2011 in Japan. Like, I think it displaced and disrupted like hundreds of thousands of lives, but I don't think, like, I can't remember the exact death toll, but I really don't think it was up that high. Not like this level of disaster, but, like, these are disasters that shake us to our core that we take decades to kind of process properly. The scale of this disaster is just utterly insane.
行方不明者の方々のことをお亡くなりになったと決めつけていいんですか?
Oh yeah.
まだ死んだと決まったわけじゃありませんよ。首相!
Also, you gotta remember too, like the September 11th attacks, like, that was insane. That was like 3,000, 4,000 people. Like, in the towers alone, in the initial collapse, I think it was about 2.9 thousand. And then, like, subsequently, there have been thousands more who succumbed to, like, the post-disaster trauma and, like, the damage and the lungs and the fires and everything. And that changed the world, essentially. A disaster, an attack on that scale that was like a few thousand. Like, it's an insane number, and it's an insane thing to have happen. But the scale, like, I'm trying to help you understand the scale of this disaster. It's so much bigger that this would be instantaneously with one of the greatest disasters of the modern era, like, since, like, World War II.
すべて首相の危機管理の甘さが招いた人災だと認識しています。民自党は今国会で首相と与党の責任をきっちりと追及していきたいと思います。
It makes sense that people would be pointing fingers and trying to blame each other. I've said it a lot, but I do think it still holds true, and I'll say it a million times. I think one of the qualities of being in a leadership position, being a president, a prime minister, any leader at all, like, from governments I don't support, like kings and, like, dictatorships. Like, I don't care at that point. Like, I still have to say this, like, no matter what kind of ruler you are, if you're the head of a government and something happens in your government that you are the head of, regardless of whether it's your fault or not, it is your fault. Like, not in the literal practical sense, but it's you're the person who has to be the spearhead, has to be the one to take all the pressure, because that's the job you signed up for. Like, that's the job you have. You have to be the one that takes responsibility for that. You don't say, oh, it's my fault. But a good prime minister would actually have to say, like, yes, we could never have anticipated this type of catastrophe. But we've learned that we have not been as adequately prepared for a potential terrorist attack than we could have been. We're going to have to reassess and learn from this, but our first priority has to be to save as many lives as possible. Like, that's the way you'd have to turn this around. You'd have to say, like, yeah, I have a duty, and I failed because I didn't anticipate this. No one could have, but that's not what really matters. What matters is that you have to convince people that you're not just going to sit on your hands and try and keep yourself safe, or try to just deflect everything and put the blame on someone else, even though the blame is literally on other people. You want to direct the passion towards those groups eventually, but the people need to know that you've got a hand on the helm and that you've got the ship going in the right direction. That's why they even say things like the captain's the last one to abandon ship, is because the people who are currently abandoning ship, and especially the crew who are trying to make sure to save as many people as they can, have to trust that the captain is going to take responsibility for their lives, that he will not leave until there is literally nothing else that he can do. Because even if that point technically already passed hours ago, because people need to believe that their efforts are going to be, you know, validated by a leader. Like, validation for sacrifice and for struggle and for fear and danger, like, it's the leader's responsibility to be able to keep the hand on the wheel and keep things moving in the right direction, even if it's almost symbolic, purely symbolic.
繰り返しお伝えします。本日午後2時頃、風祭市内にて極めて致死性の高い正体不明のガスが噴出しました。
Sorry for all the ranting. It's just such a big thing.
これに対し、国際テロ組織ガイアがインターネット上に犯行声明を発表。
See, that's the thing is, like, I'd be nervous. Like, I'd be really nervous and unhappy if the news was claiming this without, like, certifiable proof. Because technically anyone can go on a forum claiming to be part of an organization and claiming to be part of that attack.
未曾有のガス事故は有史以来最悪のテロ事件となる可能性が濃厚になってきました。
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
現在、救助活動は中断されており、市内には今なお10万人以上の方々が取り残されていると思われます。
速報です。風祭市毒ガス事件の犯行声明を出した国際テロ組織ガイアがインターネット上に新たな犯行予告を行いました。
Again, this is, I think, the diocese that's controlling and using Lucia as an asset.
しかしその一方で同組織の関与を否定する声明も出されており、
我々は世界各国で拘束されている以下に掲げる同志112名の即時解放を要求する。これが認められない場合、浮上の町は浄化の炎で焼き尽くされるであろう。
They're literally going to spring the rest of the people in that cult project.
これが風祭市に対する新たなテロ攻撃を予告するものであることは、浄化の炎が何を意味するのか、専門家はさらなる被害拡大を懸念しています。
Ironically, in the Mublov one, the story we've been reading, the Total Eclipse, Flames of Purification was actually a nuke. A nuke?
風祭市を放置はできないの。放置すれば周辺都市は愚か、周辺国にまで拡散し、生態系へのダメージも甚大。
Okay, so have they been able to prove though that a nuke would actually neutralize the poison, not just fling it into the upper atmosphere?
最終的には数億人を殺すと計算されてるわ。
Oh my gosh.
唯一の解決策は核の炎で焼き尽くすことだとバカにしてます。拡散する前の今しかない。その正気をまき散らしたのは誰ですか？あなたたちじゃないですか。テロ組織が犯行声明、デタラメなこと言ってどこまで腐ってんの？地獄へ落ちろ。
Honestly, she's got a point. Like, she's not super involved in Gaia, but all her friends and the people who care about her are. And essentially, she's being told that they are being blamed for something she knows wasn't them. I mean, like, of course. Like, even if you don't agree with everything your organization or your nation does, if your nation is being blamed for something, or your organization is being blamed for something that you never did, like, that sucks. That's, like, terrible, especially on something like this. This is horrific.
どこぞのテロ組織が軽々しく鍵に接触しようとするからでしょ。私もこれが
仕方のないことだってで済まされることじゃないのは分かってるわ。でもね、今度の鍵はこれまでとは全然違う存在だった。
How do you know that?
人類の時代を滅ぼす死の扉を開ける鍵だったのはあなたも知っているはず。全世界と全人類を守るために風祭り師はその生贄にされたのよ。
何をシャーシャーと。誰が風祭り師をこんなにしたんですか？核攻撃するのは誰ですか
？She is making a pretty solid argument here. It's like, look at, I don't care what your motivations are. Who's responsible for this? And who's responsible for the nuke that's coming? She's saying, like, you literally created your own problem here.
テロのせいにすれば、戦争も核も途上国への暴力もやりたい放題。世界は誰が滅ぼすんですか？風祭り師は誰が滅ぼしたんですか？鍵がなぜ、どうしてこんな時代に降臨したのか、それを考えたことはあるんですか？滅べばいい。こんな世界なんて。
Oh, gosh darn it. I don't think I've ever seen Gaia be as persuasive as this here, and I didn't expect that. I always thought the Akane route was going to be the one that was going to try to be the most persuasive for, like, whether Gaia was right. Even Chihaya's route, I was pretty like, ooh, Gaia's route's pretty sketchy, especially with, like, Sakuya's past. But now I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this, what Gaia's done, like creating Lucia to begin with, allowing that to happen, and then allowing them to, again, kind of start all of this nonsense. And, like, and if she's right that they are actively, like, participating and interfering in all these other countries and suppressing all these things in the name of, I mean, you can say the name of, like, the future, but you can also say democracy or U.S. investment. Like, Guardian is obviously a foil for many first world nations. And technically they're a conglomerate inside all these first world nations. And they're saying that they're kind of the puppet master behind most of those activities. But, like, yeah, you should still see this as, like, yeah, without Guardian there, like, we still see that many nations do interfere and meddle in affairs of smaller, less capable, and less world impactful, like smaller nations that are, you know, struggling and in chaos and fighting poverty and illness and all this stuff. And then we go in and assert what we want to have happen, you know, because what, we just know better? No, it's because we have more. We have the capability to interfere. If the roles were reversed and suddenly we were the destitute nation and the nations that we kind of dismiss and don't think about suddenly had all the power and the weapons, I'm pretty sure that script would flip real quick. So, just, people are kind of dumb, aren't we? Like, we're predictable, we're selfish, and we can be pretty cruel if we can justify ourselves in saying that there's some other group that just should be oppressed. Because, you know, we gotta have somebody we gotta feel better than. Stupid.
そしてそれを行うのは、汚れたあなたたちの手じゃない!
Yeah, I like that. She was like, look, if the world's gonna destroy already, like, let's at least let the planet decide what happens. I think the planet technically has a better right to be the judge, jury, and executioner than us, because we're just stupid. Can't we stop the nuke?
夜明けと同時に発射される。どうしようもない。はい、よかったですね。それで万事解決です。で、あなたらはここで何を？滅ぶ街でのんびり遊覧飛行ですか？ルチアを探している。
Oh, right, Lucia, is she alright?
無事とは思うが、行方がわからない。気の毒な人ですね、この花さんも。
それについては、返す言葉も一切の弁解もないわ。
生まれた時からあなたたちのおもちゃで、散々遊び尽くされた挙句、風祭り師、毒ガス事件の犯人に仕立て上げられて。
Yeah. I'm on Team Chihaya right now. She's dropping mic right here. Just, how do you even argue against this?
その挙句のご褒美は何ですか？この核攻撃は正気を消すためだけじゃない。この花さんごと全てを消し去って闇に葬ろうというだけのことじゃないですか。
Yeah, that's right. Lucia's entire life, since she was born, even up until this moment, she's been treated like a plaything, toyed with for the sake of people's crazy delusions.
ルチアちゃんの発する毒は、地球が死に絶えた世界で大地が吐き出す、腐った死の息吹そのもの。生きる者と地球そのものにとって、最も有害だわ。
And see, that's the thing, is like, if this is just proof, like, here's the thing, like, this is why maybe I might be on Team Guardian in the end, because, like, obviously I have, like, superfluous knowledge from being able to see all these paths, but frankly, I've seen now, like, if Gaia activates the key's death song, and it just obliterates humanity, life continues, and there's a strong case to be made that humanity would continue, albeit it'd be set back to, like maybe a few thousand individuals to kind of restart with the rest of the planet, give them another shot, you know? Yeah, everything we've done up until now gets blown away, but, like, it gets another shot. If Guardian's eventual conclusion that they're seeing, like, I was all for a while ago, this idea of, like, don't give up on humanity yet, we have time, but if this is really what we do, you know, if we're choosing the Fallout, like, ending, you know, and that's what our future is, and then eventually a planet of death where nothing can live, yeah, I'm genuinely trying to see, like, Team Gaia all the way. Like, yeah, it sucks. I'll die. All my future, like, family would be gone, and everything that that humanity stands for will be wiped off the planet. But, like, even if we were to be gone, at least everything else is still here. You know, like, at least there's still stuff. The future that's being depicted here, that, like, is the result of what they did to Lucia, and, like, where that future takes us. That just destroys everything else too.
それは鍵とそのジェネレーターであるパワースポットの破壊に最も有効的と判断された。
Oh, yeah, yeah, sure.
それで、この花さんを改造して、風祭師を丸ごと正気で飲み込む作戦になったと？馬鹿げてる！
次世代人類プロジェクトは全て闇に葬られたことになっていた。しかしそれは表向きだったのよ。
Yeah, so it looks like Guardian, maybe Greater Guardian, just not the Japanese branch. They were the only ones that didn't realize that this plan was still technically, like, being considered.
最上層部はルチアちゃんの使い道を知っていてブレンダーを送り込み、ルチアちゃんを対鍵用の生きた正気爆弾に作り変えた。
That's sad though, because if Chihaya, with her abilities and the protection that Sakuya offers, can survive, the key absolutely can survive. I absolutely loathe them for this. Only now do I realize their true hidden objective behind the Next Generation Humanity project. After figuring it out, there are a number of discrepancies that bother me. First, why didn't they simply launch the nuke immediately? If they simply wanted to destroy the key at the power spot, they wouldn't have even needed Lucia's poison. Just nuking Kazamatsuri would have been enough. Why would they fill Kazamatsuri with poison before nuking it? Why would they observe the disaster of releasing that poison before dropping the warhead? Second, how is it possible to modify Lucia in such a short period of time? Yeah. So the modification process obviously was something that was being actively researched. That's the only explanation. Like, they actively probably were looking at the suppressants that had been developed to help her be safe, and they were, you know, testing them. Maybe they have other test subjects that they were able to replicate Lucia's, like, abilities on. Second, and then the first one, of course, like, why would they do this first if they just wanted to take out the key? Because destroying the power spot should be enough to disrupt her. So yeah, I feel like they really are wanting to see. They either wanted to see if they could utilize Lucia in other areas to just kind of, you know, fully assess their own control, or, like, because maybe this is the way they see themselves being the stepping stones to being the world power, like becoming this, like, super world government organization that Guardian steps from the shadows and just takes control of the entire planet in the guise of defense and protection. That could be it. It's essentially like Nuke 2.0. Or the scarier one is that they literally are planning to bring about the end of the world. The end of the world that Lucia was being prepared to survive, they're deciding to actively try and make it happen. The nuclear shelter isn't for a research facility. They didn't have any valuable equipment, the environment, the personnel, or the time to do any of that. Despite that, how did they easily manage to modify Lucia's poison to be 1,000 times stronger in such a short period of time? This entire desperate plot to prevent Gaia from getting into contact with the key and to perfect the world, it was all a ruse. A trigger that can bring the world to ruin, and the establishment of a technology to survive that ruined world. Brenda, who should have died in an explosion in Budapest, is still alive. The man in charge of the project, Bartholomew, was with her at the time. That means his death is suspect now too. After Brenda finished modifying Lucia, she gets brought back to headquarters for protection under the premise of deportation. Where is Bartholomew? Why isn't he here in Japan to witness Lucia's final modification, the one and only successful product of his project? He's in charge of a diocese, isn't he? That means it's still happening. The Next Generation Humanity Project is still continuing somewhere even now. He's still forcing innocent children to become sacrifices, all to fulfill his insane delusion of building a utopia after the end of the world. Yeah, so like he might literally be wanting to bring about the end.
だから私はルチアちゃんを保護しなければならない。ルチアちゃんだけがこのふざけた陰謀を証言できるのよ。
この花さんには本気で同情します。ひどい体にされ、厄介者呼ばわりされた彼女がどんな気持ちでひどい改造手術を受け入れたか、想像するだけで怒りをこらえられません。
You tell her, Chihaya.
彼女が不憫すぎる。
Thanks, Chihaya, for understanding Lucia. Here, I thought Chihaya would blame Lucia for being responsible for this tragedy.
私がこの花さんを誤解すると思いました？これでも激辛パフェを食べ合った仲ですよ。
You become blood brothers after that.
私は彼女を憎まない。彼女を生み出した本当に邪悪な人々とその環境を憎みます。
Yeah. If I had all this information on hand and I were standing here right now and I was a member of Guardian, I would immediately be, like, it's sad to say, but I would probably immediately be the turncoat. I would be like, I'd go to Gaia and approach him and be like, look, I think you guys have the right idea. Like, if out of the two choices, if it's a binary choice, like, you're the ones that I'd be more willing to work with. I truly wish I could let Lucia hear these words. Lucia can open her eyes now. She was turned into a guinea pig by a bunch of dirtbags. Her life and her body, they messed everything up. It's time she admits that. I'm sure that'll be tough for her. It'll mean denying the very reason for her existence. But still, you can't leave a thorn buried inside you just because it hurts to pull it out. That's absurd. Even if you have to go through more painful memories, unless you remove that thorn, the wound will never fully heal. Ooh, and that's a perfect example of why therapy is really important. Therapy sucks, and it sucks even more to admit that you might need therapy. I think all of us technically need it, but like, if you've ever been like toying with the idea or having it being like passively recommended to you by loved ones and friends and you've just been dismissing it, I wouldn't. It's a tool. It's a tool to get a painful splinter that's constantly digging and itching at the back of your mind, to get it out and start examining it. And it's funny because like I went into counseling when I was really sick. I was struggling to accept that I was so impotent, and I was encouraged to do counseling, and I did it. And at first I didn't really think much of it other than the fact that like, oh, that was like a nice conversation. But then like after a few months, I genuinely started to improve, and I genuinely started being able to understand and interpret the difference between accepting what had happened to me and not accepting that it was the end of everything I dreamed of being or being able to do in my life. I hadn't chosen to get sick, and I hadn't chosen this form of that sickness, but I had to accept what it had done to me, what it had taken from me, and that ultimately I had to also understand that it hadn't taken everything. And that's tough because it's hard to actually do that on your own. So yeah, I recommend it. Get the thorn out of your life.
おそらくルチアは風祭り師を正気で飲み込んだ後、箱舟の核シェルターへ向かうよう命令されてるはず。
Right.
最下層の冷凍睡眠装置は彼女を1000年後へ誘える唯一のベッド。
She was probably told to go in there and it'll be cleared out by the disaster, but are they going to let her just sleep in there, or are they going to continually use her as a weapon, and maybe they figured out a way to just essentially build up that poison and artificially release it without her even being conscious anymore?
さらに彼女には多分シェルターの全てにアクセスできる最高レベルのカードキーが与えられてるわ。
それを使えば内部からシェルターを完全封印できる。あれは次世代に文明を伝える巨大なタイムカプセル。完全封印されたら1000年間外部からは誰も接触できない。
No way. You're saying Lucia's in there?
奴らの陰謀を暴くにはルチアちゃんの証言が不可欠よ。彼女には奴らに復讐する正当な権利がある。
God, but is she going to be in a state to be able to do that? Because at this point, she's accepted them. She's decided. And look what she does. She's committed like horrific things, literally killing hundreds of thousands of people in their name. She might feel like she can't come back from that. In some ways she can't. Genuinely.
私たちはシェルターの前で彼女を待ち続けたけれど、いつまで経っても現れないの。
ルチアが命令を無視し、核シェルターに入らないことを自ら選んだ可能性がある。
But then where would she go? Her apartment?
わかりますよ、気持ち。生きてなんていられるものか。それが生まれた時から常に誰かのおもちゃにされた彼女の。
Yeah, and I imagine she may have had a plan going into it, but when she saw what she did and saw that even like Kotarou fell before her poison, I think that might have changed her priorities.
一度も意志を尊重されたことのない彼女が初めて見せる反抗かもしれませんね。
Defiance, huh? She's got a point. It might be nice if Lucia was a little more selfish. Those dirtbags screwed around with her life as they pleased, and it's about darn time she did as she pleased. The key would destroy the world, so she even obediently followed the orders to eradicate the entire city, together with the key. But now, she's trying to go against her final order to go into the shelter and seal herself in for 1,000 years. I mean, Lucia doesn't even want to stay alive anymore, does she?
Kotarou.
Her body will change to the point where that just by her existing, she might end up killing someone. And when she asks what was the one thing she was good for is, she gets forced into acting like in this horrible role. Yeah, once she saw it, I think they probably whitewashed the truth by telling her that the key would destroy the world, so she had to stop it. But what did that even leave us with? The tragic scene right in front of us? Lucia, I can understand the feeling of losing your reason to live after having fulfilled it and leaving yourself with the fate. I understand it so well, it hurts. But Lucia, just leaving yourself to die, can you really call that an act of defiance? It might be the only act she feels like she has. It's like, even that was something that she kind of wanted, like, for a while, and it was always denied her. For good reason, you know, but at the same time, she doesn't see it that way. So live. Die, and those bees who turned you into their plaything get to laugh, see you play right into their hands. That pisses me off so darn much, I won't forgive them for that. You want to stand up against them and stay alive and live. Whatever they put her through, however hard her life has been, Lucia has every right to hold it against them. She didn't know what those things tasted or smelled like. She can't touch flowers or animals. She couldn't play together with everyone. What kind of life has she lived, robbed of all of that? She has the right to hold it against them. Don't just sit there and take it. I pulled out my phone and called Lucia's number. Just like before, her phone's still off. Pick up, please.
あなたたち、本気でこの花さんを保護して、自分たちの不正を暴くつもりですか？ガーディアンのあなたたちが、ガーディアンと戦えるわけがない。
私たちは、悪との戦いに生涯を捧げることを誓ってるわ。ガーディアンだからこそ、私は絶対悪を許さないし見逃さない。
Yeah, but...
我ら、この身を捧げ、盾となり槍となら。
That's what everyone else thought too.
ガーディアンの槍で、ガーディアンの盾をつこうと？これが本当の盾つく。
Honestly, at this point, you kind of need to. I think Guardian needs to die. It actually kind of reminds me of like S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Marvel stuff. At least in the movies, I'm not super versed in all the comics. I mean, good grief. I think it'd be easier to get into the One Piece series. But for the movies especially, the idea was that S.H.I.E.L.D. had been infiltrated by Hydra secretly, so a secret organization within a secret organization. Great stuff, really. Really, actually, one of my favorite movies was the Captain America movie where he discovered a Hydra. But the idea, too, was that essentially destroyed S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of stuck around for a while, but it essentially had to die because it had been so fractured and destroyed by the mistrust and the, manipulations that it essentially crumbled into dust. And then they brought together Saber, which was kind of built off the bones of the original premise. But yeah, Guardian will have to die, honestly. They can try and keep the name, but frankly, I wouldn't. I think you have to let it go and you'd have to build something new.
本当ですね。この花さんを保護すると見せかけて、永遠に口を塞ごうっていうつもりじゃないんですよね。
誓うわ。教義の神にじゃない。私とあなたが共に信じる正義に対してよ。あなたは、私が正義と良心に従うことを見届ける立ち会い人となればいい。
She did let you live. That's a fair testimony.
いいですとも。私もそれだけが、この惨劇で命を落とした人々や仲間たちが報われる唯一の方法だと思います。私も、私の友人をもてあそんだ巨悪を許せるほど心広くありませんので。
Well said, Chihaya. Ooh, I gotta say, Chihaya's... her route, she gained a lot of my respect and points as a character in a romance path. But in this route, she keeps getting more. Chihaya's gonna be fighting pretty hard for favorite character and best girl, that's for sure. Let's find Lucia fast. When's the nuke dropping?
日の出と同時との情報よ。おそらく午前6時ちょうどだわ。
午前6時って
Yeah, that's scary.
あと108分。
Oh my gosh, do we even have time to get away?
シェルターへの避難を考えたら30分は差し引くべきね。
Oh, that makes sense. Trying to get away might not be as feasible. Getting in a shelter might be the best bet we've got. In other words, we don't find Lucy in the next hour, it's game over. I wonder if Kotarou could survive a nuke.
夜明けと同時に米元船より核攻撃が行われます。もちろんです。ご安心を。
I hate Brenda. She so far is my, like, at least Mito, who literally burned people to death for fun, was a lot more enjoyable of a character than this Brenda. This Brenda sucks.
あれの正気は数百万度の炎で完全に消滅します。万一にもそれ以上に拡散することはありません。
Oh yeah, I love how she was so like, we give you a purpose, Lucia, then in passing she's like, that thing. She just sees her as a doll. Again, the doll, a creation of a man being, a human that's been twisted into a weapon, being just a toy. It's the perfect solution. There won't be any trace left of that deadly poison. You assume a lot. Like I said, I'm guessing, genuinely, unless they concretely tested this, that all it would do is fling it into the upper atmosphere and could literally destroy the planet. Like, she could be literally destroying the planet and bringing about the dead world that they anticipated. Once we get enough data on the poison's efficiency and extent of spread, we can just wipe everything clean.
ええ、それは容易でした。
She's got one of those buttons that was easy.
昇進のルチアをさらに薬物で判断力を握らせれば、どのような心理状態へも誘導できます。
Oh man, that makes a lot of sense too. And that's probably why she took her gloves off. That must have made sense, because she struggled to take the gloves off even knowing she couldn't hurt anybody with her suppressants, right? And then they gave her new suppressants and the drugs to manipulate her emotions, and she took them off because she was like, her emotions were inhibited. She wasn't as stressed. She essentially was pacified.
自ら死に場を求める従順な殉教者に仕立て上げる術など、すでに我々は1000年以上も前から確立済みの技術です。
He's crazy. She's terrifying. This is genuinely horrifying, because I'm terrified that, like, this is a real thing, like, because it sounds like there could be techniques to take people who are whom you can manipulate, whom are in positions of vulnerability, and use that to, like, through hypnosis, suggestion, drugs, and all that stuff. You could develop programs to manipulate them. Heck, you could look at like the Tate brothers and their influence. Like, whether you are 100% for or against them, I don't really care, but like, just look at how they're able to manipulate people. And the thing is that they target their main target tends to be insecure men, and they try and convince them to kind of become this almost cult-like following. And that ability to and like, there's a whole industry, like there's that alpha camp, like where people would like sign up to go and become alpha, which was essentially a boot camp where these guys were paying like $18,000 for 3 weeks of a boot camp where these people just got to shout at them and abuse them for fun, and they paid to have that happen to them. Again, it's preying on vulnerable people and people who feel purposeless or shamed or like they aren't good enough, and you are like essentially manipulating that feeling into like a monetary value and a gaining of a following. It's disgusting. They were always controlling their mental states, just like how the child test subjects were always so docile.
もちろん プロジェクトを離れ短くない期間を経過している彼女が私たちのマインドコントロールから解放されている可能性もありました。
But she couldn't have, because she never could socialize and break new bonds. Like, people who get brought out of literal cults, like, what saves them is socializing and interacting with just normal, everyday people who aren't a part of the cult, building connections and forming relationships. That's what gives them the groundwork to be able to resist the conditioning that they went through during their time with the cult. But Lucia never got that, because she was always had to be so distant with everybody. She was so terrified. So she always was at arm's length. Kotarou was the first friend, and he had the best chance of trying to break those shackles, but they didn't have time to build that bond. They didn't have time to kind of overcome all of those built-in tendencies, so that as soon as something went wrong and she was terrified that she was going to have everything that she just felt like she'd gained ripped away from her, that made her very vulnerable and susceptible to this.
彼女が作戦への協力を拒否する確率は、実は彼女が拒否する可能性は決して低くありませんでした。
Having been freed though only temporarily from the clutches of the project, Lucia gradually regained control of herself. Though she was rather eccentric compared to her peers, she was social enough that no one would question her for being part of the class. There was a fair chance that Lucia could have established a strong sense of self, severing all ties with her past and refusing to help Brenda. If only Lucia hadn't been disheartened. Lucia would never, ever have had a hand in such a despicable plan. However, the unfortunate timing, compounded with the heartless words heaped upon Lucia, drove her into a corner, hurt her, made her sad and desperate. Thus, she lent her ear to the devil's whispers. Fetch me. But and again, like I said, Lucia is a representative of so many people who do genuinely get corrupted, twisted by cults and, extremists and all of these types of followings. People kind of get into these chambers and they purposely try and isolate you from outside voices, because if you never even give consideration to ideas that are against what you think are true at the moment, then you can be persuaded more and more to more and more heights and extremes. We're seeing this in my country a lot. The fact that there's active calls for things like book bannings, and there's recently some big pushes about establishing Christian values in schools, making in Louisiana they're trying to pass a law to take the 10 Commandments of the Bible and have it be printed on large posters in every single classroom in every school, the public schools run by the government. I really don't think that's going to be allowed, but the fact that they even have the grounds to try and make that happen shows that these echo chambers are getting pretty strong and manipulative.
いえ、まさか。彼女が協力を拒否するケースも当然想定しておりました。それでも今回の作戦実行には全く支障になりません。
How much you want to bet Plan B was to knock her out, give her the suppressants anyway, and then just dump her in a spot and let the poison just build up and explode?
万一彼女が作戦に同意しない場合は、彼女の脊髄を切断し、生きた人形にして冷凍睡眠装置に閉じ込める予定でした。
Somehow they took my idea and made it even worse.
それを小気爆弾として収穫祭会場の中央で爆破するつもりでした。
Yeah, screw you, Brenda. You are literally the worst.
そういうことです。彼女の協力意思など特に必要はなかったわけです。いいえ、一応はありました。円髄を切断する手間は省けましたから。おかげでこの手を汚い東洋人の血で汚さずに済みました。
Oh, great. Of course, she's racist. That explains a lot. Without even realizing, Lucia had chosen the best option. If Lucia had refused to cooperate, she would have been forcefully turned into a lethal living bomb.
恐ろしい。そして完璧だ。マクファーデン司祭、パワースポットを破壊し、鍵とガイアをまとめて始末し、さらに貴重なデータまで取れた。
データについてはバーソロミューが。
すでに報告が入ってきている。その結果は素晴らしいものだ。それは我々人類が ついに鍵の力を手に入れたことを示している。
Okay, that's interesting. How's that?
我々は父しか知り得ない終末の日の秘密を握り、そして次の世界への扉を開く鍵までも手に入れた。我らガーディアンが数千年の歴史の果てについに手にした快挙です。
君たちには鍵を使い開いた扉の向こうの世界の研究を引き続き行ってもらう。
Oh, so did they actually capture the key? Okay.
今度はもう偽善者たちの横やりはごめんですわ。
もちろんだ。二度と邪魔されることのない最高の研究環境を約束する。君たちの要求した予算も全てを承認しよう。
Oh, that's terrifying.
ありがとうございます。枢機卿閣下、我らこの身を捧げ、盾となり槍とならん。
Oh, screw you. Oh, no. Within a large, high-end shopping mall. In the atrium stands a vast mirror of escalators that weaves in and out of each other as they lead to the upper floors. The sight looks almost divine. The space looks like a tower of the gods leading up to heaven itself. In the very middle of the atrium is a girl looking up to the skies and invites her up. There isn't a living soul in sight. Perhaps everyone in the world has already gone extinct. Without even knowing its owners had already died long ago, the building's lights will forever stay on until they receive the order to stop. And that is why, though the city's now dead, the unbelievable, beautiful nightscape is still visible from the observation deck. Even though the city is met at 10, the traffic lamps, neon signs, and building lights, they all continue to shine brightly. Lucia looks up into the ceiling in silence. Even though she just has to take the escalators to reach it, it's the place that she can no longer reach on foot. That's why Lucia retraces her steps going to the stores that she visited that day. I should have thought that she'd be here. The first place she went into was the cosmetics store. The peculiar sting of perfume in the air. Didn't know anything of it on the day. I'm sure Kotarou thought the two of us were sharing the same smell, the same experience. But I couldn't smell anything. So, I'm here today, here to share his experience. That way I can finally complete the date the two of us had. We went to the arcade too, right? He looked like he enjoyed himself playing that game. He said it was some kind of fighting game. If I learned how to play, maybe Kotarou and I could play together. Those controls looked awfully complicated, though. I won't understand unless Kotarou shows me how. I think we spoke about bath bombs in the shop. I enjoyed seeing the colors and bubbles in the water from the bath bombs. But as for the most important part, the fragrance, I couldn't really experience it. That also explains why when she made a bath bomb, it was huge and had a really weird combination of smells. Because she didn't know how to actually scent it, so she just kind of threw stuff together that she thought probably smells good. And she made it huge because the emphasis for her was always the texture and the experience of the bubbling and everything. So for her, it was the perfect bath bomb. Now I can understand a little. Now that I've stopped using the suppressants, I've finally regained my sense of smell. Oh, so she just stopped using the suppressants altogether. Now I can prepare some excellent handmade bath bombs for Kotarou and Shizuru. Oh, right. There was this body therapy store as well. I didn't have anything to do with this place, seeing as I can't let anyone touch me. Rubbing Kotarou's shoulders was an interesting experience, though. He had such a funny reaction when I massaged a part that I thought was a pressure point.
楽しかった。
Yeah, it was. After that, where did we go next? Oh, right, the toy shop. Told him my life story as we looked at those model guns, I think.
私に出会ってくれてありがとう。
Those were the words I told him that day. Now I think about it, there's something I wanted from him since back then. I wanted someone to need me. Just by being alive, I could be taking someone else's life. I shouldn't be allowed to exist. I wanted to be given a reason to live. I lost my purpose after the project was dissolved. Since then, I've merely been pushed through life. Miss Nishikyojo assigned me to search for the key. But no matter how vital the mission is, it isn't something I alone can accomplish. I wanted to be needed by somebody because they specifically needed me. Kotarou promised so many times that he would never let me be alone for the rest of my life. Whenever I needed him, he was there for me. But then, if I don't need him, then would he still be there for me? I didn't just want someone to pity me. I've always wanted someone to accept my unacceptable self, or someone to need me, even if it was the devil himself. This is my weakness and my sin. So when I accepted this mission, I'd already decided this place would be my gravestone. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's terrible, but like, as soon as we came here and it showed me the slide, I was like, of course she's here. This is where she would go. The nuclear strike will create a fireball millions and millions of degrees hot, incinerating everything in an instant. I decided that I would let my cursed life burn to ashes, together with the memories of the most wonderful day of my life. I take out my phone from my pocket. Didn't want to speak to Kotarou, nor did I want to read his messages. All those feelings just built up, and I didn't even care to turn the phone on anymore. This phone. The messages I've exchanged with Kotarou back then are treasures to me. I've even saved and protected them. Now that things have gotten to this point, I want to read through them again. Yeah, I've done that too. I remember back in the day with the flip phones. Because I was in school, so like, you saved the messages that were really meaningful. Is my phone even working? The last drug that Brenda gave me greatly accelerated my own toxicity. But what about the other curse? The hyper vibrations? Maybe I've already accidentally destroyed my own phone without even realizing it. The very thought is just so depressing. My heart feels like it's about to be torn in two, just thinking that I can no longer see those precious messages from Kotarou. I just want to make sure it's not broken. With that as an excuse, I turn the phone on. Oh, it's on. A little green gauge on the phone screen fills up. Suddenly, it switches over to my message notification screen. There's probably messages from Kotarou. How terrible for me not to reply to even read them. What the? I'm so caught by surprise, I almost gasp in astonishment. Just how many messages are in here? The number of unread messages just continues to go up and up and up. What kind of messages was Kotarou sending? I ponder the possibilities. Oh, what if it's not just Kotarou? What if it's like Chihaya and Suzaru and what if it was everybody in the RS? It won't be everybody, but it'd be nice. But regardless of whatever I can imagine, what strikes me deeper than anything else is this ever-increasing message count. Can't tell how many messages he sent, even the phone stopped keeping count. 99 plus. The newest message is from less than an hour ago. Thank God. Kotarou is able to resist my poison and stay alive. There's no title, the message itself is short. Don't die. You'd better live. There's a reason why you were born. You gotta understand, Lucia, he's kind of got you figured out. Even though it's just a text he sent minutes ago, his words hit me like an answer to the way I'm feeling right now. Perhaps Kotarou already knows everything about how I feel deep within.
Kotarou.
I'm so glad she turned her phone on. Fetch me.
Kotarou.
Oh, our poor little broken girl. The tears I thought I'd stopped flowing pour out of me once again. Now I want to back read all his messages, but I'm terrified of doing so. Because as I finish reading all those messages, I might realize a mistake I've made. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. Even though I already sealed this phone away, I find myself carelessly calling Kotarou's phone. It doesn't even ring twice before Kotarou picks up. Yes, my boy! Lucia, it's me!
Kotarou.
Of course I have. Your poison doesn't work on me. And it's not just me either. Suzaru and Chihaya are both safe too. Did you get my texts? Unfortunately, it wasn't too complicated. How could I not? I can understand how much your pain you've been through. I've already heard everything. Everything those nut jobs in the project did to you. These things they made you do, and even everything that's about to happen. Oh, we're far from able to run away from this. There's no way we'd get far enough away on foot. Yeah, nukes, no thanks. I'm getting out of here. But you're coming with me. First, we'll hide out in the nuclear shelter until the nuke hits. After that, Guardian can bring us someplace that no one else knows about. Miss Nishikojo take care of everything. You don't need to die. We're gonna stay alive, Lucia. Yeah, okay, she was a participant in something horrific, and she will have to process that and probably answer for it in some way, but she's also been clearly manipulated, especially the introduction of the manipulation drugs. That really helps make the board pretty clear that, like, she can't be held culpable to what she's done, but she also has to be she probably can't ever be truly free ever again. But yeah, no, she does not deserve anything like other than like I said, maybe the deserted island's the best option. Of course, like, you can. Don't die. Live. Your whole life got screwed over thanks to the selfishness of a bunch of jerks. It's about time you got to be selfish yourself. If you die here, then you're just playing into their hands. Don't let that happen. Don't let those a-holes succeed with their plan. Going to sleep for 1,000 years? How's that any different from them just telling you to die? Look, just live. Stay alive. We need to get to the nuclear shelter and get away from the nuke. Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, I do. Look, I know you're in shock right now. You're really desperate, and I understand how you feel. I understand everything about how you feel, alright? But even then, I'm telling you, live! Look, I'll head right there. So where are you? He understands everything that I'm feeling. I think she's gonna test him. Don't. Just tell him where you are. Yeah, that's right. I do, alright? Just listen to me. What? Where am I? If he still won't tell me, then I will never ask him again. That's what I've decided. And Kotarou can't answer this? No one can. Not anyone in the world. Oh, this question. Ooh. I can think of an answer. I don't know if she'll accept it. Meaning? Kotarou's lost for words. See, you can't answer, can you? Okay, sure. The suppressants don't work now, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. Those suppressants are something us people made. It's not like we can't make newer, improved suppressants. And new suppressant would be done before you know it. Oh, come on, Kotarou, no, come on. That's not what she needs right now. That's not what I... Kotarou fumbles on a slip of his tongue. The vigor behind his words immediately dissipates. I know it so well it hurts, but why am I trying to force Kotarou to say it? Forget it. That's enough. Enough? But I haven't even... Not true. Why does it come down to that? Listen to me! Hey, we're still not done talking. Don't just wrap up the conversation like that. Hey, wait, Lucia! What is my reason to live anyway? Let's flip that around. What kind of world would I have to have a reason to live? What is there that only I could accomplish? What is something that only I have? I need to find what that is. I cannot forgive even my own self for living. Kotarou, you tell her you need her, dang it! I look up the atrium leading to heaven. I pray to heaven for a divine revelation to show me what I need to do. Just what am I? Konohana Lucia? That's nothing but a name. A human of the future created by the Next Generation Humanity Project? Until it became the future, I have no meaning. With the poisonous gas in my body, I've destroyed the key, thus saving the world. Well, now that the world's been saved, my job is done. Millions of degrees of heat generated by the nuclear strike will vaporize me instantly. I won't even feel any pain. Seems like the most compassionate way to let me return to where I belong. Yeah, this isn't as sacrilegious as taking one's own life. I'm simply erasing the toxic substance. The world needs this. Is this feeling of purpose and fulfillment I have only because I destroyed the key? Now I think about it, as I am now, my existence is equivalent to the key. How ironic. A mysterious girl whom we refer to as the key. A messenger from heaven and an emissary of the earth, or perhaps its very incarnation. Though we speak of the key again and again, when it comes to how it looks or speaks, we have not even seen or heard it. Why does the key even manifest? And why does the key even have the power to destroy the world? Incredible in myths and countless catastrophes that wiped out the human race. If so, then it could be considered the key itself, as well. If I continue to exist in this world, then the world will be turned into a place of poison and rust thanks to my miasma. The old humanity will perish and its existence losing all value. In the same way that my existence has no value to the old world. Just what is the key? In several hundreds of millions of years of history, it has wiped out the dominant species, repeatedly returning everything to nothing. I imagine the key is perhaps in some way a reset of a world that has become impure. Meanwhile, people have been given the chance to reset it and continue to live on. To resist it. Noah created the ark and survived a world that was flooded and destroyed. Lot escaped Sodom and survived a fire of brimstone rained upon a city. In the same way, humanity is given the chance to survive the destruction wrought by my own self. The destruction I bring, however, is not something as primitive as a flood or a rain of fire. There's no escaping it, no matter where you run. Fleeing is no way to resist the destruction I bring about. If I instead choose to stay rather than taking my own life, the same thing the key has done before will be replicated throughout the world. Even though people have used me to destroy the key, I would simply accomplish the key's mission and destroy humanity anyway. How ironic. What goes around comes around, I suppose. In the midst of all the despair, this is the first time I can actually laugh at something. Kotarou said there's meaning behind me living. Well then, I will live. I will herald humanity's twilight and subsequent demise. Humanity's only path to survival will be to resist me. Just as God and his messenger had whispered to Noah and Lot, giving them only them any chance to survive. Perhaps I can whisper to Kotarou and the others as well. I will take over the role as the key, which I have destroyed, even though I have never seen its form. There is me, who cannot exist in the old world, and there is humanity, who cannot exist in the new world. We can pit our raisons d'état against each other. Nice, I'm only deceiving myself. Either way, the answer will soon emerge. If one dies, it is meaningless. No, if one is meaningless, they die. Only those with meaning will remain. Do humans, as the current dominant species of the era, still have a right to remain on the Earth? Asking that question is my final purpose. Oh boy.
今更ですが、聞いていいですか？どうしてあなたはこの正気の中でも平気なんです？
Right, back at you. You're doing just fine too. In my case, I had to change on my jacket because it changed color, probably because it got hit by a blast of poison at point-blank range. My body wasn't affected though.
私だって生身だったらさすがに無理です。私はこれが。
Chihaya rolls her uniform sleeve up and there's some kind of bandage wrapped around her arm. What's that? At a glance, it just looks like a bandage, but it feels strangely familiar.
能力とは違うようね。昨夜の力です。昨夜は私を助けるためにこれを作って。
Oh my gosh.
倒れてしまいました。
Right, because he's weakened by his age, and so he's probably currently like fighting off the poison himself. So he's probably alive, but it's taking literally everything he has.
助けなきゃって思って。
I don't really get it, but that's why you're walking around this part of town, right?
私は魔物。
それ以上はこの場で言わない方がいいわ。
Right. There's ears. Miss Nishikyujo covers Chihaya's mouth.
これとても強力な結界です。それくらいじゃないとあの正気の中じゃ粋なのに、どうしてあなたは。それはずっと思ってた。小太郎は一体何者なんだ。
I'm Kotarou.
一切謎よ。数億人に一人の奇跡の体質だとしかわからないわ。検査の結果わかってるのはルチアちゃんと限りなく近い体質であるということ。
Huh. Interesting. So if that's the case, because we know that how he has his abilities and powers is because a portion of his very body that was like destroyed was replaced with a part of the key, right? The aspect of Gaia. That's essentially what's running through him that gives him his abilities, is that he's part key. That implies, like, Lucia is talking about how she's also kind of similar to the key. So I wonder if somehow, like, that Guardian Project cult people were somehow injecting raw, like, energy from the earth into children, like, artificially? I don't know. That's interesting.
ルチアちゃんの毒に抵抗してさえいない。当たり前なものとして受け入れていた。
That's because I stepped on the accelerator from the intent of overcoming Lucia's poison and accepting her. The test's pretty much the test's pretty spot on. As I collapsed in the sunflower field, I should have wished for that even more strongly. I bet my body right now is far, far more similar to Lucia's than Miss Nishikyojo's and the others know.
目を覚ました時は今にも倒れちゃいそうな顔色でしたけど、今は割と平気そうですね。
Yeah, actually, as terrible as things are going right now, I feel amazing.
小太郎はすごい。存在が謎だ。
Yeah. This is a power that I had before I even realized it. There's something strange inside me that gives me whatever power I wish for.
その力って。
I don't know when, but I've always just had it. When I step on the accelerator inside me, I can get my body to slowly change.
ルチアの毒に最初から抵抗があったわけではない？
Yeah, at first it actually left a mark and it was throbbing with pain. But when I learned that made Lucia sad, I just couldn't forgive myself for being so weak and getting that mark, so I stepped on the accelerator. There's only an accelerator though, there are no brakes. Any changes made by my body are irreversible. I can't just shake the fear that I'm approaching some kind of self-destruction. The same goes for Lucia though. Her body can no longer go back to the way it was. That just makes us even.
それであなたはルチアちゃんを悲しませたくなくてそういう体に自らを作り変えたのね。
It sounds kind of lame when you say it like that.
いろいろと焼ける。
There.
あ、これってそういう話だったんですか？ああ、おー。
Yeah, you're great. What's with these reactions? I've got some legit mysterious superpowers here. This is what you're supposed to be looking up to the great Kotarou with respect.
君の正体は本当に謎ね。でも一つだけわかることがあるわ。あなたの存在がルチアちゃんにとってどれほど救いになっていたか想像もつかないってことよ。
Can you imagine how all this would have played out if he wasn't connected to Lucia? Like, and that's kind of what I'm wondering is like, what happens on the Shizuru route? Like, does Lucia go through this still? Like, is this like essentially a canon chain of events? Because remember, at the Chihaya route, when Nishikyojo and Shizuru show up to try and shut us down, when we have that like weird negotiation project we get into where we end up fighting them for a bit, we ask them where Lucia is, and they say like she's not available. That makes me think that she was probably locked down inside the isolation unit. So it makes me think that it stays consistent, that she manifests and loses control of her poison in every route. It's just most of the time she gets spirited away and just never comes out again, so she's almost never around for whatever finale is going on. So yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder if that is really consistent between all the paths. And so if it is, on Shizuru's route, where we still get to confront her, like, do we try and find a solution for Lucia's medicine, or what? Even I'm aware of that. That's why I became the way I am right now. I want to be someone who can support her. Miss Nishikyojo and the others are telling me the only one who can convince the heartbroken Lucia. Just the last question that Lucia told me on the phone is eating at me. Is there any meaning to my existence in this world? I hurt Lucia because I couldn't answer her question with certainty. I've come this far because I wholeheartedly want to support her and I don't want to hurt her. But faced with her last question, the answer is not something I can create no matter how hard I step on the accelerator. I'm sure I know what Lucia is. That means I can meet her directly to get another chance to convince her, I'm certain of that. But she's deeply in despair about her own existence. Just how can I save her from that? I still don't have an answer to that question.
ビルの屋上は無理です。あそこの駐車場なら降りられると思います。
それでいいわ。お願い。もう時間があまりないわ。
Yeah, we're on a do or die mission right now. The helicopter we're on makes a gentle landing in the corner of the parking lot. It's the parking lot of the Kazamo shopping center where Lucia and I went on a date. Even though it's late at night, the city's lights are still shining brightly. Kazamo's no exception. Guess you won't need a flashlight for this one.
でっかいショッピングセンターですね。本当にこんなとこにいるんですか？
Yep.
他の心当たりは全て探した。ここにいなければお手上げ。
信じましょう。天の寺君の勘を。
She's here. If Lucia wasn't anywhere else that suspected her at, they suspected her to be at, then this is the only place I can think of.
時間にだけ気をつけて。シェルターを閉じたり、ルチアちゃんを隔離して冷凍睡眠装置に入ってもらったり、いろいろと時間はかかるのよ。
I know. If things look hopeless, just leave me behind.
教師の真似事をしてから、初めて心から言うわ。
Yeah?
遅刻すんじゃないわよ。絶対に帰ってきなさい。
Sounds like a plan. Alright. It's kind of cruel, but we're going to end here because I really think this is going to be a very long and very important interaction, and I don't want to cheapen it and rush it. I think we've had a lot to talk about and digest. And I can even see, like, I'm pretty sure I know, like, I'm going to label this the question, and then the next part will be the answer. Because the answer is either Kotarou thinks of an answer, or we're dead, and that's an answer, so, oh boy, that'll be spicy. But yeah, ooh, there's a lot of politicking under the surface, like real world politics kind of bubbling within the story. Obviously, it's not actually trying to replicate the state of the world, but it also was not shy about making the parallels, and I think that's worth thinking about. I don't think to be like besmirching like all these Western powers are so terrible and evil, or shake my fist, you know, like I genuinely am very proud of being an American and I want the best for my own country and my own people. But I also have to say, like, it's being proud and wanting to be supportive of the nation and the culture and the people you represent can't also mean you blot out, ignore, and pretend that the mistakes and the abuses of power don't happen. They do. Corporations do it to common people. Countries do it to other countries. It's sadly, it's part of human nature. And I think that the more we're aware of that and willing to like acknowledge it, means that we have the willpower to simultaneously want the best for who we are, where we are, and what we represent as a people, but also believing in a future where people can be better than they currently are. Believing in a future where we don't just take advantage of each other, but we can maybe cooperate and find something greater, find something better. Because the thing is, like, the world of today, despite the craziness and the dumbness and like, especially with how toxic the news can feel, the world is a much better, healthier place today than it was 100 years ago. We have lower rates of like violence and murder than any other time in history. Wars are documented, and a lot of times people are held accountable for their actions. Sometimes there's misfires, sometimes there's overzealotry, and sometimes there's fanatics, but the thing is that like 90% of the time, we have those in proper channels, proper orders, proper punishments. It's the exceptions we see in the news, and it can make it feel like nothing's going right and everything's going poorly, but frankly, the world's actually still in a better place than it was a long time ago, even with current conflicts. And that's the thing, is like, those conflicts are way complicated and not easy to be like, they bad, they good, but I think you can agree with me that things like war, they're just bad. I don't care. It's bad. And if there's a better way, we should strive to find it. Sometimes there are no other choices, and you have to be willing to confront the ambiguity, the frustration, and the evil that involves conflict. But also understand that just because you might feel justified doesn't mean that you can be justified to commit horrendous crimes against humanity and other people. We're all people. It just sucks. It sucks that we can so quickly lose perspective and get into like such unga bunga, my team better than your team tribalism that kind of fuels a lot of the conflict we see. But I don't have answers. I can only complain. If I had answers, I'd be president, you know, or I'd run for president because I could actually articulate actual answers rather than just saying what I wish and my ideals. Anyway, enough rambling and ranting. Thank you for being here today. Thank you again so much for supporting me in the channel. Please stick around for the end card. Like, it's not even like, oh, click on stuff back there, which is, you know, what happens at the end. It gives you option to click on stuff, but just look at the beautiful art. Make sure you give support and love for Sandora and like her fantastic work, and like, you know, just send her love in the comments if you can, please. Like, I tell her thank you all the time, but I would love it if you also could show your support for her work, because she's genuinely talented and deserves all the love that we can give, because I'm very happy to be able to feature her work on my channel, and I want to do so for a long time to come. So, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you especially to the patrons and members of the channels that support directly, but also for anyone who's watching, leaving comments and likes and all of that. Like, all of that makes such a big difference to me. It helps the channel a lot, but even more importantly, it just helps me know I'm doing the right thing, that I'm walking in the right direction. And, you know, I'm not the kind of channel that's going to chase clout and try and just be success above all, viral above all. I imagine I could try a lot harder, and I don't want to, because if I'm going to be successful, I'm going to be successful making content that I'm proud of. I'm going to be successful talking about stories that I'm fond of. I'm going to be successful because I find people who genuinely love the same things I love and enjoy sharing these journeys. And if that number never gets any bigger, that's perfectly fine. Yet we keep finding people, and that's really exciting. So thank you. And until next video watching me, or see me in next, I'll see you there.